On Christmas Eve, the sharp Ohio cold cut through my thin coat as I stood before the polished mahogany door. My phone was still warm from Grandpa Joe's brief call. "Elliot, get over here now. I'm at your folks' new place," he'd said, his voice bubbling with excitement, like he was holding on to a joyful secret. Grandpa Joe, a busy Chicago real estate developer, rarely had time to visit. The thought of seeing him warmed me despite the freezing night. I pushed the door open, and the glow of a fireplace and the rich scent of roasted turkey wrapped around me. Grandpa sat at the head of the dining table, his eyes gleaming when he spotted me. He stood, pulling me into a tight hug, his familiar cedar cologne washing away my exhaustion. "Elliot, what do you think of this house?" he asked, pride in his voice, as if he'd just handed me a treasure. "It's stunning, Grandpa," I said, keeping my tone even. "But it's my parents' place." A heavy silence fell. Grandpa's face tightened, his gaze flicking from me to my father, Thomas, then to my stepmother, Claire, across the table. My father, usually composed, went pale, his hand shaking as he gripped his wine glass. Claire coughed, forcing a thin smile, her eyes flashing with unease. "Your parents' house?" Grandpa repeated, his voice turning as cold and sharp as the winter wind outside. "Elliot, explain." I didn't understand what was happening, but a knot of dread tightened in my chest. I looked at my father, expecting answers, but he stared at the table. Claire jumped in, her voice unsteady. "Joe, it's a misunderstanding. This is the family home." But Grandpa ignored her, his eyes locked on me, and I knew a painful truth was about to unravel. "My name is Elliot Harper. This is the story of years spent in the shadows of unfairness, pushed aside by my own family. If you've ever felt like you didn't belong, like an outsider in your own home, you might understand. Even if you haven't, I want you to hear this. A tale of a boy scarred by rejection who found hope in the darkness. I grew up in a quiet Ohio suburb, where autumn leaves painted the streets gold and neighbors felt like family. But my family was different. My mother, Emily, died shortly after my birth due to complications I still don't fully grasp. She was a light I never knew. My father, Thomas Harper, was a reserved man, distant, as if my existence reminded him of a loss he wanted to bury. When I was 4, he married Claire, a woman with a sharp smile and calculating eyes. They had a son, Nathan, Nate to everyone. Nate was their world. To my father, Nate was the pride of the Harper name. To Claire, Nate was her everything, her reason to dote and indulge. And me? I was the stepson, the extra, a faint outline in the house I called home. From childhood, I felt the difference. At 6, I sat in a corner of the living room, watching Nate unwrap a shiny new drone, the kind every kid wanted. I got a secondhand toy truck with a wobbly wheel, my father saying it was plenty for me. "Nate needs new things to spark his creativity," Claire would say, as if I wasn't worth more. When I brought home straight A's, my father gave a curt, "Good job, but don't slack off." If Nate got a C, the house erupted in praise, like he'd won an award. I wasn't envious, truly. I just wanted to be seen, to hear a kind word, just once. But over time, I realized I'd never measure up in their eyes. Claire would say, "Elliot, why can't you be more like Nate?" Or, "You're lucky to have a roof over your head." Her words, soft as they were, sliced deep. Was I a burden? Was I unworthy of love? We weren't poor, but we weren't wealthy. My father managed a local bank branch, while Claire stayed home, treating Nate like royalty. I was told not to complain. My father often said I was fortunate to have a place to live, but that place never felt mine. My room was a cramped attic with a squeaky cot and a window facing a dim alley. Nate had a bright bedroom stuffed with gadgets and sports posters. Once, I asked why I couldn't have a downstairs room like Nate's. My father snapped, "Don't ask for more than you deserve, Elliot." Those words shaped me, reminders I wasn't valued. But I didn't let myself sink. I learned to smile, to act like everything was fine, even as pain churned inside. I vowed to break free one day and show I wasn't the failure they saw. At 18, I graduated high school with solid grades, unnoticed at home. I dreamed of college, maybe studying architecture, to make Grandpa Joe, the only one who cared, proud. But that hope was crushed. When I asked about scholarships or loans, my father's eyes were cold. "Elliot, we can't afford it. Nate's our priority. He's got real potential." I stood frozen, the world crumbling. Nate, who spent his days gaming and partying, was their investment? I didn't argue or cry. I nodded and left. That night, on my creaky cot, staring at the cracked ceiling, I swore I'd make it on my own. If they didn't believe in me, I'd believe in myself. I started working at a big box store, first ringing up groceries, then stocking shelves. The hours were grueling, late nights, holidays, rude customers, but I didn't complain. Every paycheck was a step toward freedom. I rented a small apartment with peeling paint and a dripping sink, but it was mine. No more of Claire's sharp comments or my father's dismissive looks. Meanwhile, Nate got a free ride. My parents paid for his private school, bought him a new SUV, and never asked him to work. Once, Claire came to the store, saw me at the register, and smirked. "This is what you're doing, Elliot? Such a pity. Nate won't ever have to do this." I clenched my jaw, forced a smile, but inside I screamed, Why am I less than him? Those years were lonely. I had few friends, too busy working and saving. But Grandpa Joe was my lifeline. From Chicago, running his real estate empire, he'd call when he could. His calls kept me going. He'd talk about his projects, ask about my life, and say, "Elliot, you're tougher than you know. Don't let anyone tell you different." I never told him how my father and Claire treated me, afraid he'd think me weak. Grandpa shared stories of my mother, how Emily loved poetry and believed in fairness. He blamed himself for missing her birth, tied up with work. If I'd been there, things might have been different, he'd say, voice breaking. I didn't blame him. I just wished I'd known her, felt her love. I grew used to my solitary life, fixing my sink, cooking basic meals, guarding my heart. But I didn't know a secret was brewing, one that would change everything. At 21, I was still in my rundown apartment, working late shifts. Simple meals, broken sleep, and quiet mornings were my norm. I had little, but I had my independence, earned through years of silent endurance. One summer afternoon, while scanning items at the employee register, my phone pinged. A text from Claire, "Come to the new house tonight. 1789, Maple Grove." Small gathering. I stared at it, confused. They'd never mentioned moving. No one said they'd bought a new place or asked if I wanted to join them. Part of me wanted to ignore it, but another part hoped it was a chance to connect, even slightly. I wanted to show I wasn't the quiet kid anymore. I'd changed, maybe they had too. I stopped by a corner store, grabbing a modest bottle of Merlot, and picked up a monogram scarf I'd ordered for my father, initialed Teach. Low on cash, I still wanted my gift to mean something. The new house was in an upscale neighborhood, lined with young oaks and pristine lawns. It felt like another world, two-story homes with elegant doors, slate roofs, and brick walkways. I parked in front of a pale brick house with a wide porch and blooming garden. Holding the wine and scarf, I stood before the door, heart racing. Not with excitement, but with a strange sense I was stepping into something foreign. Claire opened the door in a tailored dress, makeup perfect. "Elliot, come in," she said, her smile brittle. Inside, the living room gleamed, hardwood floors, a stone fireplace, plush chairs, and a crystal chandelier. Framed photos lined the walls, my father and Claire's wedding, Nate with a soccer trophy. None of me. I wasn't surprised. My father was in the kitchen, uncorking wine, dressed in a crisp shirt, looking relaxed. He gave a quick nod. "You made it." I handed him the gifts, saying, "Congrats on the house, Dad." He set them aside unopened and turned away. The party was small, new neighbors, an older couple, a co-worker of my father's. They chatted about the area, property values, and plans for a hot tub. I sat quietly, listening, unnoticed. No one asked about me. No one noticed I drank water instead of wine. "We searched forever for this place," Claire said proudly to a guest. "Got it just before prices spiked. Thomas has a knack for real estate." My father smiled, agreeing. I tried to join in, smiling, wanting to celebrate their happiness, not knowing I was cheering for something stolen from me. Back at my apartment, I thought about texting Grandpa Joe, but stopped. He was busy, aging. I didn't want to bother him. I lay on my bed, staring at the chipped ceiling, and fell asleep, unaware of the truth waiting to explode. After the housewarming, life resumed its grind. No one mentioned the party or asked my thoughts on the house. No one suggested I move in. But then, for every major holiday, Thanksgiving, Christmas, Nate's birthday, my father and Claire's anniversary, I got a text. 6 p.m., dinner. Nate's excited to see you. Be prompt. I went, not because I believed they'd changed, but out of duty. I brought small, thoughtful gifts, wrapped carefully. They were set aside, unopened in my presence, with no real thanks. Stranger still, they started pulling me into family photos. That first Christmas, Claire said, "Elliot, stand by Nate for the picture." Surprised, I complied. My father stood center, arm around Nate. I was at the edge, forcing a smile. The camera flashed, and I felt like a prop in a staged scene. They kept including me in photos, sometimes with everyone, sometimes just my father. Once, Claire touched my shoulder, smiling brightly. I didn't get it. I'd always been excluded before. Why now? After Nate's birthday dinner, I asked lightly, "Why all the family photos lately?" Claire laughed. "Just capturing memories, Elliot. Your family, right?" I nodded, but something felt off, like I was being maneuvered into a role I didn't fit. On Christmas when I was 23, the truth hit. It was freezing. I'd finished my shift at 4:30 p.m., sipping coffee in my apartment, planning to arrive late, eat quickly, pose for photos, and leave. My phone rang. "Grandpa Joe. Elliot, come now. I'm at your folks' new place, 1789, Maple Grove. Wanted to surprise you." I froze. Grandpa in Ohio? He rarely left Chicago, tied to his business. Why was he at their house? I grabbed my coat and rushed over. The house glowed with Christmas lights, wreaths on the door, a tree sparkling inside. I knocked, heart pounding. Claire opened the door, her smile faltering. "Elliot, why are you?" She stopped, eyes darting behind me. "Elliot, my boy, come in." Grandpa's voice boomed. He stood in the living room, tall and commanding, his gray hair catching the chandelier's light. He hugged me, a mix of warmth and tension in his grip. "I wanted to surprise everyone," he said. "This house is something, huh? You happy here? Unease gripped me. I don't live here, Grandpa. I just visit. His smile vanished, his eyes narrowing as they shifted to my father by the fireplace, wine in hand. Claire spoke quickly. Joe, it's a mix-up. Elliot likes his independence, don't you? Her eyes begged me to agree. Grandpa ignored her, his voice low. Elliot, you don't live here? I swallowed hard. I rent an apartment on the south side, paid for with my store job. Silence swallowed the room. My father gripped his glass tighter, head bowed. Claire stammered. Joe, we thought it was best. Elliot wanted his own space, and Nate needs room too. Enough. Grandpa's voice cut like a knife. Thomas, explain. 2 years ago, I gave you $450,000 to buy a 3-bedroom house here for Elliot, to give him a strong start. I was clear, it was for him. So why is he in a rundown apartment while you live in that house? My father's face drained of color. Claire opened her mouth, but no words came. I stood stunned, the floor dropping away. A house. For me? For $150,000? I looked at Grandpa, then my father, searching for a mistake. There was none. My father set his glass down, voice shaking. I thought the house was better for the whole family. Elliot's fine on his own. Nate's young. He needs a good environment. Needs? Grandpa roared, stepping toward him. Elliot's scraping by in a dump, working nights, while you live in his house. You put it in your name, didn't you? My father said nothing, head low, shoulders trembling. Claire found her voice. Joe, you don't get it. Elliot's not my son. Nate's the future of this family. Elliot doesn't deserve quiet. Grandpa's shout shook the room. Elliot is Emily's son, my daughter's blood, my grandson. I trusted you, Thomas, to care for him. You stole his gift, lied with these staged photos. He pointed at a framed picture, me awkwardly at the edge. I thought Elliot was happy here, but it was a sham to hide your greed. My throat tightened. The photos, the forced smiles, it was all to fool Grandpa, to fake a happy family. I looked at my father, waiting for anything, an apology, an excuse. He stayed silent. Elliot, Grandpa said, softer but firm, pack your things. You're coming to Chicago. This house will be yours, as I meant it to be. Thomas, my lawyer will handle you. Claire sobbed, but I felt nothing for her. My father spoke, voice rough. Elliot, I wanted what was best for the family. Best? I said, cold but calm. You never saw me as family. I spent my life trying to earn your pride, but you only saw Nate. You stole my chance and hid it. I turned away, done. Grandpa's hand rested on my shoulder, his eyes pained but resolute. Let's go, Elliot. You don't belong here. The Christmas night air stung as we left the house meant for me. Streetlights glowed on the snowy road, my breath visible in the cold. Grandpa led me to a black SUV, where his driver, Mark, opened the door. To the hotel, Grandpa said firmly. I slid in beside him, feeling like I'd stepped into a new reality. You okay, Elliot? He asked, his gaze searching. I don't know, I said, voice rough. It's all too fast. He nodded, patting my knee. Things will change. You're coming to Chicago. We'll start fresh, just us. I stared out the window, Christmas lights blurring past. Chicago, a city I'd only known through Grandpa's tales of building his empire. I'd never imagined living there, but now it was my new beginning. The next morning, we flew to Chicago. From the plane, I watched snow-dusted fields below, leaving behind my old life. Grandpa read a financial paper, glancing at me with warm smiles. At O'Hare, Mark waited with the SUV. We drove through Chicago's towering skyline, glass and steel gleaming in the winter sun, a world apart from Ohio's small streets. We pulled into a gated neighborhood, lined with ancient elms and grand homes. Mark stopped at a wrought iron gate, behind which a driveway led to a 3-story mansion with manicured lawns and blooming winter roses. My jaw dropped. Your house, Grandpa? I asked, voice shaking. He chuckled, clapping my shoulder. Welcome home, Elliot. Yours too. The mansion was breathtaking, marble foyer, winding staircase, modern art on the walls. The living room dwarfed my apartment, with tall windows overlooking a garden, pool, and patio. The air smelled of cedar and leather, like a luxury hotel. I don't know what to say, I murmured, clutching my small bag. You don't need to, Grandpa said, leading me upstairs. He opened a door to a large bedroom. King bed, oak desk, garden view. A new laptop sat on the desk, a soft rug underfoot. This is your fresh start. No pressure, just a new beginning. I sat on the bed, stunned. Hours ago, I was in my leaky apartment. Now, I was here, in a room I couldn't have dreamed of. But the house in Ohio, meant for me, still stung. That night, Grandpa took me to a sleek downtown restaurant. Candlelight glowed as he ordered a fine Merlot. I sipped sparingly and used a luxury. Elliot, he said, voice serious. We need to talk about your father, the house, everything. I nodded, heart racing. 2 years ago, I sent Thomas $450,000 for a house in Maple Grove, for you, to build your future. I was too busy to oversee it, so I trusted him. I was wrong. My fists clenched. So Dad kept it for himself? Grandpa's eyes darkened. That's not all. Since you were a kid, I sent money for your school, clothes, everything to give you the best. I thought Thomas was using it for you. But hearing you're in a rundown apartment, working nights, I realized he kept it for himself and Claire's family. It was like a blow to the chest. The money meant for me had built Nate's life. What now? I asked, voice tight. We fixed this, Grandpa said. I've got lawyers working on the house. It'll be yours, as I intended. And you'll stay here, start college, chase your dreams. Architecture, right? He smiled. You're my grandson. You deserve this. The weeks that followed were a blur of legal battles. Grandpa's lawyers dug into my father's finances, uncovering years of misused funds. Not just the $450,000 for the house, but thousands more sent for my education and care, diverted to Nate's private school, car, and lifestyle. The evidence was damning. Bank records, emails, even Claire's social media posts flaunting their family wealth. We filed a lawsuit against my father and Claire. The case drew attention in our small Ohio town, whispers spreading about the Harper's deception. My father's lawyer argued he'd acted in the family's best interest, claiming I'd chosen independence. But Grandpa's legal team was relentless, presenting proof of his intent for the house and funds to support me. In court, I spoke for the first time. My voice shook but grew steady as I described my childhood, always second to Nate, living in the attic, working to survive while my father and Claire lived off Grandpa's money. I wasn't their son, I said. I was an obligation they ignored. The judge, a woman with kind but firm eyes, listened intently. The ruling came swiftly. The Maple Grove house was transferred to my name, as Grandpa intended. My father was ordered to repay years of misused funds, forcing him and Claire to downsize. Claire's tears in court left me cold. She'd never shown me warmth. My father tried to apologize in a letter, admitting he'd favored Nate to keep peace with Claire. I didn't respond. The hurt was too deep. I chose to stay in Chicago, enrolling in a university architecture program, my tuition covered by Grandpa. The mansion became my home, a place of safety and possibility. I spent evenings with Grandpa, learning about his business, his struggles, and his love for my mother. He showed me her old poetry books, her words echoing the fairness she'd believed in. I felt closer to her than ever. Years later, Nate reached out. Grandpa's health had begun to falter, and Nate, now in college himself, wanted to reconnect. We met at a Chicago cafe. He looked older, humbler. I didn't see how unfair it was, Elliot, he said. I grew up thinking it was normal. I'm sorry. His apology wasn't enough to erase the past, but it was a start. We hugged, a tentative bridge between us. One spring evening, I stood in Grandpa's garden, pointing to a rosebush he'd planted decades ago. It nearly died last winter, I said. I thought it was gone, but this year, it's blooming stronger than ever. Grandpa smiled, his eyes crinkling. Like you, Elliot. You've found your light. That night, I walked barefoot into the mansion, hung up my jacket, and climbed into bed. The Ohio house, once a symbol of betrayal, was mine, but I didn't need it to define me. I was Elliot Harper, survivor, dreamer, architect of my own future. The truth had set me free, and with every step, I was building a life that was truly mine.